smash to the face, stomps to the head, kicks to the body, ribs cave, bones break, organs rupture, blood oozes. Heavy boots continue their attack, beating down relentlessly, savagely into the battered body. Soon the assault is over. The body lies heavy and motionless on the concrete pavement in the unlit, pitch-black park. Natalie stared vacantly off into space, caught up in the trauma of a distant memory. The memory fades, replaced by sounds. A lone dog barking, the shrieks of flying foxes, the calls of nightbirds on the hunt, frogs croaking, crickets chirping, and the marauding thumping of possums raiding bins. "Daddy's dead," she slowly observed in her trance-like state. Nora sighed while she watched her sleepwalking daughter, lit by the distant streetlight that filtered white and softly through the curtains of the kitchen window. So many times she'd gone through this ritual with her daughter. "Yes, darling," she said. "You're dreaming. Come on back to bed. It'll all be better in the morning." Mornings were always better, and this morning was particularly bright, beginning with a couple of minor victories for Nora. The first triumph was her win over the dog, the large bone-bearing devil hound from next door that counted Nora's property as part of its territory. Nora didn't really dislike the dog. It was just the wrong dog in the wrong place, an unwitting agent of destruction sent out by a jealous neighbor to wreak havoc on Nora's beloved garden, their own yard resembling a rubbish tip. And just what was the victory Nora was so pleased about? She'd caught the dog midway in the act of defecating on her lawn. It was something she'd dreamt about, and now her dream had come true, at point-blank range. Squatting, tail up, legs trembling, a look of intense effort on its constipated face. The dog was vulnerable and perfectly set up for the bucket of water she kept in preparation. The second accomplishment for the morning also concerned her garden. This time it was her roses. Despite the hot climate, she'd succeeded once more to achieve a great and beautiful crop. Never mind the sneering southerners, those so-called experts from down south of the border, who poured scorn upon such Queensland efforts. Nora's roses were a match for any of them. This morning she cut the first of the season ready to put them pride of place in the center of her kitchen table. As she did so, she sniffed a bloom, taking in its deep, heady, sensuous smell. A romantic at heart, Nora understood why roses were a symbol of romance and love. She trimmed their stems at the sink, glimpsing at her reflection in the nearby kitchen window pane. She wondered about her appearance and sensuousness. She studied herself. Her slightly tanned skin was still smooth. Her shoulder-length hair had only a few flecks of grey, while her figure was still shapely and firm, despite a child and her age now approaching 40. 40. Unbelievable. The time had gone so fast. What of the time ahead? She imagined the years before her ticking away. How would she fill them? And with whom? While Nora arranged her roses in her special cut-glass vase, she listened to the radio. This was to prove the first sour note of the day. The disc jockey was sprouting his usual so-called progressive opinions. A smooth Sydney personality with a seductive voice, the DJ'd been brought to the regional Queensland centre to usher in the new 80s decade. Through his rude, provocative style and his ability to outrage, it was hoped he'd pepper things up, thus reversing the network's declining country audience. The experiment seemed to be working, even on Nora, who listened to his talkback daily. In fact, her habit of listening seemed to run almost against her will. She seemed mesmerized by the feelings of indignation this import provoked in her. "Cock-a-doodle-doo, country cousins," the smart Alec crowed in his cock-of-the-walk banter. "It's wake-up time, rise and shine. Time to milk those cows." "The cows have been milked for hours, Mr. Cock-a-doodle-doo," Nora snapped at him, appalled by his ignorance of country life. He was one rooster she wanted plucked and turned into a feather duster. "Hey, did you hear the news this morning?" the smug voice continued. Nora wondered what item he was talking about. These days there seemed so many overseas reports dominating the news, like the Iran hostage crisis, and the seemingly endless American presidential election race. She did like the sound of that Ronald Reagan, but usually she tuned out until the weather. "In case you missed it, here it is again," the announcer said, faking the formal tone of a solemn newsreader. Police were called to a rowdy council meeting last night after a scuffle broke out between two local councillors. Representatives were divided over a plan for a controversial family planning clinic in the town. Opponents of the scheme claim the family planning facility is nothing more than an abortion clinic in disguise. They also fear it will become a magnet for the disposal of unwanted pregnancies in our state. The DJ stopped to change back into his regular city slicker patter. Abortion, a woman's right to choose. Do you girls really own your own bodies, or are they just the property of the state? That's our discussion subject for today, the DJ crooned bright and breezy from the radio. Nora could feel her temperature rise. "You make your own bed, you lie in it," she mumbled in response. She knew she was old-fashioned in her opinions. It was why she felt more at home in the company of older people than those of her own age. But principles were principles. Her morality wasn't negotiable, old-fashioned or not. The DJ continued, "What are your views on this issue? Got a strong opinion? Then have your say. Come on, ladies. Out from under the old man's thumb and ask him if you can use the phone. The lines are open. The first 3 callers who agree with me win free drive-in passes to seat." She abruptly turned off the radio in protest. "Abortion's not a joke," Nora shouted. Natalie entered the room just in time to see her mother addressing the silenced radio. "That man makes me so angry," she said to her daughter. "Then don't listen," suggested Natalie. "I won't," Nora replied unconvincingly. Natalie flopped down on a chair at the table. She was having less of a successful morning compared to her mother, with no dogs to terrorize or new season roses to cut. Her morning started with her usual reluctance to haul herself from her bed. It wasn't that she was lazy, although in some respects she was. Her mother was always on to her about her tidying up her room and doing her chores. A 19-year-old shouldn't need nagging, was her mother's constant complaint. No, Natalie's slowness to face the day was a kind of resistance against her fate. The thought of dragging herself through yet another day in her uncle's supply store sometimes seemed too much. "How did you sleep?" her mother asked. "Okay," she yawned, while tying her long hair back into a loose ponytail. "You were sleepwalking again." Natalie nodded in response. She wasn't surprised. She felt kind of drained. Nora went to the cupboard and fetched a bowl and some cereal for Natalie's breakfast. Nora liked to make sure her daughter had a meal before work. Left to herself, Natalie'd forget. She'd rather be reading a book. While placing the breakfast things on the table, Nora regarded her daughter's appearance. Looking at Natalie was in some ways like looking at her younger self. The skin tone, the auburn hair, the fulsome body shape. But there was a discordant note about Natalie's appearance. A kind of unkeptness had developed in her demeanor since leaving school. "Your clothes could do with an iron," Nora remarked. Her daughter's knee-length navy blue skirt and her open-collared white shirt were creased from bad ironing. "I did iron them," Natalie replied defensively. "And your shoes," Nora went on, regarding Natalie's scuffed black, flat-heeled shoes. "When's the last time they saw some attention?" "Lay off, Mum," Natalie rounded. It was clear it was going to be one of those get Natalie mornings. It was then Nora noticed it. The sight of it chilled her. The gold chain which Natalie wore around her neck popped out through the gap above her shirt's top button as she bent over her bowl of cereal. Instead of the plain gold cross that hung from the chain, a brass washer now took its place. "What on earth?" Nora exclaimed. "What are you wearing? Don't you recognize it?" Nora, of course, recognized it. Normally, it rested on the bottom of Natalie's chest drawer. Every time she put away Natalie's clean underwear, she saw it there. Sometimes she wanted to take it and throw it away. She hated it. A washer, once golden shiny, now dull and green with corrosion. Absurd. But she dared not. She knew Natalie cherished it. "But why are you wearing it?" Natalie shrugged. It was an impulse. It had simply occurred to her. She held the washer up and squinted at her mother through its donut center. "No one wears a washer," her mother observed. "So what?" Natalie replied with an air of defiance. "It's different." "Yeah, different," her mother protested sarcastically. Young people these days were always trying to be different. "It looks stupid and it's ugly." "Take it off." No, I won't. Do you want people to think you're peculiar? I don't care what people think. Nora felt like snatching it from her daughter's neck, but restrained herself. Although many in the outside world might see her daughter as compliant, even meek, her mother knew she had a stubborn side to her nature. Anyway, this fad, if that's what it was, would pass. All right, have it your way, if you want to look silly. Nora walked to the sink and began washing up her breakfast bowl. She liked to eat early in the morning. Occasionally she glanced over her shoulder at Natalie, who munched slowly on her cereal, stopping between spoonfuls to rub her temples. You okay? Her mother asked. I've got a headache. I've had it all morning. I don't want to go to work today, Natalie announced. Mum, will you phone Uncle Joe for me? Nora studied her daughter skeptically. Natalie looked all right, maybe just tired from her restless night of sleepwalking. Nora wiped her hands, went over and touched Natalie's forehead with her palm. She did feel mildly warm, but not overly so. You can go to work, she said. If you're not careful, your uncle will sack you. He doesn't like me, Natalie stated. He growls at me all the time. He thinks I'm stupid. I'm sure he doesn't think that. Natalie rolled her eyes in response. Natalie knew her mother was proud of her brainy daughter. At school, Natalie'd been top of the class in so many subjects, yet Natalie also knew her uncle didn't share Nora's appreciation of her talents. Uncle thinks I'm strange, but it doesn't matter. I think he's strange. Chapel, 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 that's all he cares about. At work, everybody calls him Holy Joe behind his back. Don't you say it, Nora warned, alarmed that his employees should regard him with such disrespect. Joe takes his religion seriously, as we all should. She cast Natalie a scolding look. I take my religion seriously, Natalie responded defensively. Anyway, I know what this is about. You're not sick. You just want to stay in bed all day and read. I know your tricks. Natalie smiled, although she tried vainly to suppress it. A day in bed with a book was appealing, but it was too late. Her smile betrayed her, and her mother had caught her out. Natalie did have a headache, though. Lately, she'd been having headaches frequently. However, she wasn't about to argue further with her mother. They'd squabbled enough for one day. Natalie stood and was about to leave the table when Nora gently took her by the arm. What now? Natalie asked, staring into her mother's face. Nora picked up the brass washer that hung on its gold chain at the front of Natalie's shirt. She dropped it into the cleavage between Natalie's breasts. Tuck it out of sight. For me. Natalie nodded reluctantly in agreement to the compromise. Nora then lightly, momentarily felt her daughter's breasts. Very ample, Nora observed. Mum, Natalie protested, while her mother grinned, happy that in some ways she was still capable of embarrassing her blushing daughter.